The soul often mistakes the storm for abandonment, when in truth, it may be the sound of heaven shaping destiny. Every hardship carries a hidden page in the story God is writing. The winds that unsettle your peace are not always sent to destroy, sometimes they arrive to prepare. What feels like delay may be divine craftsmanship in silence. Your present turbulence is not the conclusion, it is the opening chapter of victory. There are moments in life when the sky seems to close above us, and every direction appears wrapped in uncertainty. In such hours, the human heart is quick to believe that the storm has come as an enemy, that suffering is proof of abandonment, and that hardship is merely a cruel interruption in the story we hope to live. Yet the deeper mystery, one often hidden from immediate sight, is that turbulence may carry a purpose greater than comfort ever could. The storm is not always the destroyer of destinies. At times, it is the servant of them. A man standing beneath dark clouds rarely thanks the heavens for rain. He looks instead for shelter, wishing only for the skies to clear. But the fields do not grow under endless sunlight. The earth receives its richness through seasons that appear harsh. What seems severe to the eye may be essential to the harvest. So it is with the soul. The seasons that press us, shake us, and unsettle us are often preparing ground that ease alone could never cultivate. God does not waste sorrow. The tears that fall in hidden rooms, the nights spent wrestling with fear, the prayers whispered when strength has nearly vanished, none of these disappear into emptiness. There is a strange and holy work taking place beneath what appears broken. The heart, once certain of its own power, begins to discover dependence. The spirit that trusted only what it could hold learns to trust what it cannot yet see. The world often teaches that victory belongs to the strong, the swift, and the untouched by pain. Yet heaven tells a different story. Strength is not merely the absence of struggle. Often it is born within struggle itself. The soul shaped by adversity carries a depth that comfort rarely produces. It learns compassion through wounds, patience through waiting, and faith through uncertainty. Consider the sculptor standing before an unformed stone. To an observer, every strike of the hammer appears violent. Pieces fall away, edges break, dust rises. Yet the sculptor sees what others cannot. He does not strike to ruin the stone, but to reveal what is hidden inside it. In much the same way, life's turbulence may feel like loss, but the unseen hand of purpose is often removing what does not belong to the future being prepared. Many people stand in the middle of their storm and ask, "Why has this happened to me?" It is a natural question born from pain. Yet another question waits beneath it. What is this moment preparing me for? The first question looks backward toward explanation. The second looks forward toward transition. Formation. The storm may not answer every mystery, but it often awakens a greater vision. There are burdens that arrive not because a person has failed, but because growth requires them. The seed must disappear beneath the soil before it reaches the light. From the surface, burial and planting appear almost identical. One seems like an ending, the other is the beginning of life. Many souls mistake their planting season for defeat because they cannot yet see what is rising beneath the ground. God's purposes are rarely announced with immediate clarity. They unfold quietly, often hidden beneath ordinary days and difficult moments. The path of preparation seldom feels glorious while walking through it. It feels slow. It feels uncertain. It feels unfinished. Yet unfinished does not mean forgotten. The storm may strip away false securities. It may expose fears long hidden. It may reveal how fragile human certainty truly is. But in doing so, it creates space for something stronger than self-reliance. It opens the heart to trust, not because all answers have arrived, but because hope refuses to die, even when explanations remain absent. The turbulence surrounding your life may seem chaotic, yet purpose often moves beneath chaos like a quiet river beneath rough waters. What appears as disorder to human eyes may still rest within divine design. The chapter filled with struggle may one day be understood as the chapter where courage was formed, where faith learned to stand, where the soul discovered that even the darkest clouds could carry the promise of rain. For it is often in the silence that the heart becomes most troubled. The storm can be endured when there is a voice to guide us through it, but when the heavens seem still and every prayer appears to return unanswered, a deeper struggle begins. It is not merely the pain of the situation that burdens the soul, it is the fear that perhaps God has stepped away from the story. Silence, to the weary heart, can feel danger. oddly similar to absence. Yet silence and absence are not the same thing. A teacher remains silent during an examination, not because the students have been abandoned, but because the lesson is being trusted to grow within them. The quietness is not rejection, it is expectation. In much the same way, there are seasons when God speaks less to the ears so that faith may speak more loudly within the soul. What feels empty may actually be sacred ground where unseen work is taking place. Human nature longs for visible signs. We desire certainty, immediate answers, and clear directions written across the sky. We wish for every closed door to come with an explanation and every delay to carry a timetable. But heaven rarely unfolds itself according to human impatience. Divine timing often moves beneath the surface, hidden from sight, shaping outcomes before revealing them. The difficulty is that silence invites imagination, and fear is eager to fill every empty space. A delayed answer becomes a forgotten prayer. A closed door becomes a permanent ending. A difficult season becomes evidence that hope has failed. The mind begins writing stories that the heart was never meant to believe. Yet history, both sacred and human, is filled with moments where silence stood before revelation. The dawn does not announce itself while the night is deepest. The seed beneath the earth gives no report of its progress. The roots of great trees grow in darkness long before branches rise into sunlight. Much of life's most important work happens where eyes cannot follow. There are people who walk through years carrying promises they have not yet seen fulfilled. They pray, wait, struggle, and wonder whether heaven still remembers their names. The silence grows heavy. Days turn into seasons, and seasons into years. Yet what appears motionless from the outside may still be moving beneath the surface with perfect intention. God's silence is often mistaken because humanity measures activity by visibility. We assume that if we cannot see movement, then movement has ceased. But the craftsman shaping a masterpiece does not display every stage of his work. There are hidden rooms where preparation happens, unseen hours where details are formed, and quiet moments where purpose advances without applause. Sometimes the silence protects us from answers we are not ready to carry. Sometimes it preserves us from paths that appear beautiful but lead toward loss. Sometimes it slows our footsteps because the future requires a stronger foundation than the present heart possesses. Delay is not always denial. Waiting is not always punishment. The soul grows strangely in these quiet places. It learns to seek God not only in moments of celebration but also in uncertainty. It begins to understand that faith is not merely believing when evidence surrounds us. Faith becomes most alive when the road disappears and trust continues walking. There is a sacred difference between knowing that God exists, and trusting Him when He seems silent. The first belongs to understanding, the second belongs to surrender. Many discover the depth of their faith only when the familiar voices disappear and they must walk by conviction rather than comfort. The silence also reveals what truly governs the heart. When answers vanish, hidden fears rise, old doubts return. The soul confronts its own fragility. Yet this exposure is not cruelty, it is refinement. What remains after uncertainty often becomes stronger, purer, and more deeply rooted. A child walking beside a parent in bright daylight rarely thinks about trust. The path is clear, the direction obvious. But place that same journey in darkness, and every step becomes an act of dependence. The hand once held casually is now held with purpose. In the same way, life's silent seasons teach the soul to cling more deeply. There are prayers already moving toward fulfillment that have not yet reached the visible world. There are doors being prepared beyond present sight. There are battles being fought beyond human awareness. The quietness does not mean the story has stopped. It may simply mean that the author is writing in chapters not yet revealed. And perhaps one of the hardest truths to accept is that God often works most profoundly where human eyes see least. The absence of noise does not mean the absence of presence. The stillness of heaven is not proof of distance. Beneath the silence, purpose may still be unfolding, grace may still be moving, and unseen hands may still be arranging tomorrow while today remains wrapped in mystery. And it is within that mystery that character begins its hidden construction. Not the character admired by crowds or praised by the world, but the deeper kind, the unseen strength that holds a soul together when applause has vanished and the road has become difficult. Trials do not merely test what a person is, they often reveal what a person is becoming. Most people desire greatness, but few regarding the furnace in which greatness is formed. We admire endurance while avoiding hardship. We celebrate courage while hoping never to face fear. Yet the virtues that give weight to a human life are rarely born in comfort. They rise from places of pressure, waiting, disappointment, and persistence. A life untouched by struggle may appear peaceful, but it often remains untested. The soul that has walked through valleys carries a different language. It understands patience not as a theory, but as survival. It understands mercy because it has needed it. It understands hope because it has fought to keep it alive when circumstances offered none. Character is not built in moments of ease. Ease reveals preferences, trials reveal foundations. When everything is stable, a person may believe their strength is secure. But storms ask questions that ordinary days never ask. They uncover hidden fears, expose fragile places, and bring the soul face to face with itself. There are truths about the hum and heart that can only be learned in adversity. Pride often survives success but struggles to survive brokenness. Self-sufficiency stands tall during prosperity yet trembles when certainty disappears. Trials have a way of stripping away illusions. They remove the masks people wear before others and reveal what remains when nothing external can be trusted. This process is rarely pleasant. No one welcomes the fire while standing inside it. The refining of character feels more like loss than progress. Old habits resist leaving. False securities fight to remain. The soul, accustomed to comfort, resents the very thing shaping it. Yet gold is not refined by gentle admiration. It passes through heat. The flame does not create the gold, it reveals it by removing what hides its purity. In much the same way, hardship often uncovers strengths already planted within the soul but hidden beneath fear, pride, or comfort. There are people who look back upon their hardest seasons and discover something unexpected. The storm they once prayed to escape became the place where they learned endurance. The waiting they once resented became the place where patience took root. The disappointment they thought would destroy them became the place where compassion was born. Trials change the language of the heart. They teach a person to speak with gentleness because they understand pain. They teach humility because they remember weakness. They teach gratitude because they have lived without certainty. Suffering, though never easy, often deepens humanity in ways success cannot. The world measures strength by visible victories. Heaven often measures it by hidden faithfulness, continuing when no one notices, believing when answers remain absent, choosing integrity when compromise seems easier, remaining kind when bitterness feels justified. These quiet victories rarely receive applause, yet they shape character more deeply than public triumphs. There is also a loneliness in becoming. Growth frequently separates a person from older versions of themselves. The thoughts that once felt safe begin to fade. The desires that once ruled the heart lose their power. The familiar life slowly changes, and the soul finds itself standing between who it was and who it is becoming. This middle place is uncomfortable. It feels unfinished because it is unfinished. The sculptor has not laid down the tools. The work continues. Every trial becomes another stroke shaping identity, removing excess, refining purpose. Many people ask God for strength without realizing that strength often arrives disguised as challenge. They ask for wisdom without expecting confusion. They ask for courage without expecting fear. Yet these gifts are frequently developed within the very conditions people wish to avoid. The workshop of character is not built in sunlight alone. It contains shadows, waiting rooms, unanswered questions, and silent nights. It includes moments when the heart feels too weary to continue, and yet somehow continues. It includes tears that no one sees and prayers spoken with trembling faith. And perhaps this is why trials carry such strange power. They do not merely alter circumstances, they alter the person walking through them. The storm outside slowly creates something stronger within. The weight once feared becomes resistance that builds endurance. The wounds become teachers. The waiting becomes preparation. Little by little, almost unnoticed, the soul begins changing, not into someone untouched by pain, but into someone who can carry pain without surrendering hope. Not into someone who avoids storms, but into someone who has learned that even the fiercest winds can become instruments in the hands of God, shaping a character strong enough for the future still waiting beyond the horizon. And once character has been shaped in the hidden workshop of trials, transformation begins to appear where only turbulence once existed. The soul that entered the storm trembling died. O's not remain the same forever. Something changes, not all at once, not with sudden announcements or dramatic signs, but quietly, like dawn entering a room before anyone notices the light. Transformation rarely arrives dressed in comfort. More often it comes through disruption. The very seasons people resist may become the turning points of their lives. The closed door, the unexpected delay, the burden too heavy to understand these moments often stand at the threshold of becoming. Human beings naturally love stability. We build our hopes around familiar paths, predictable outcomes, and plans that seem secure. We imagine progress as a straight road leading gently towards success. Yet life seldom travels that way. There are sharp turns, hidden valleys, and fierce winds that seem to scatter everything carefully arranged. What appears to be chaos, however, is not always destruction. Sometimes it is rearrangement. A tree does not fear the changing seasons because its roots understand where. Its branches cannot see. Winter may strip away leaves, silence the growth, and make the landscape appear lifeless, yet beneath the frozen ground preparation continues. Spring is already hidden inside what looks empty. The soul often experiences its own winters. There are seasons when dreams seem distant, strength feels reduced, and progress becomes invisible. Everything appears still. The future looks uncertain. Yet transformation frequently begins in places that resemble endings. There is a peculiar sorrow in leaving behind an older version of oneself. Even growth carries loss. The person who is becoming stronger must release former fears. The person learning faith must loosen their grip on certainty. The one being prepared for greater purpose cannot always remain where comfort once lived. This is why turbulence feels painful. It is not merely changing circumstances, it is changing identity. The process unsettles the heart because transformation asks for surrender. It invites the soul into unfamiliar territory where old definitions no longer fit. The things once trusted begin to fade. The familiar patterns lose their hold. The person stands between what was and what will be, unable to return yet not fully arrived. It is here that many become discouraged. They mistake transition for failure. They believe the shaking means collapse when it may actually mean reconstruction. A building being renovated often appears more broken in the middle of restoration than before the work began. Walls come down, dust fills the air, the structure looks unfinished. Yet the disorder exists because something better is being prepared. God often works this way within the human spirit. He removes before he restores. He empties before he fills. He stretches before he strengthens. The turbulence is not evidence that the story is falling apart, it may be proof that the story is moving forward. Transformation also demands patience because growth is rarely visible while it is happening. Ning. A river does not carve stone in a single moment. Time and persistence accomplish what force alone cannot. Likewise, the soul changes through repeated acts of faith, quiet endurance, and continued trust during ordinary days. There are victories that happen long before circumstances change. The moment bitterness loses its grip is a victory. The moment fear no longer governs every decision is a victory. The moment faith survives disappointment is a victory. These transformations may go unseen by the world, yet heaven counts them as sacred progress. Many people wait for external change while missing the miracle already taking place within. They look for open doors, restored opportunities, visible success. Yet the greater work may be happening in the heart itself. The storm is not only preparing a destination, it is preparing the traveler. A future filled with purpose requires a soul capable of carrying it. Blessings without maturity become burdens. Opportunity without character becomes danger. Transformation ensures that when the door finally opens, the person walking through it is not the same one who first began the journey. This is why turbulence so often stands before bright futures. The future demands expansion, and expansion requires change. The vessel must grow before it can hold more. The roots must deepen before the tree rises higher. Preparation always precedes elevation. The storm that once appeared cruel begins to reveal another meaning. The delay was teaching endurance. The uncertainty was strengthening faith. The pressure was widening capacity. Every difficult moment was adding weight to the soul, not to crush it, but to prepare it. And slowly the person who once begged merely for escape begins to understand something unexpected. The turbulence was never the final chapter. It was the passage between who they had been and who they were meant to become. The winds that seemed determined to break them were, in ways hidden from sight, carrying the toward transformation strong enough to meet the brighter future waiting ahead. And when transformation has begun its quiet work, faith is called into a deeper place, the place where the path can no longer be clearly seen. For there comes a moment in every journey when certainty grows silent, familiar signs disappear, and the road ahead seems hidden beneath shadow. It is here that faith is no longer an idea spoken in comfort, it becomes the lantern carried through darkness. The human heart longs to see before it believes. It wants assurance before movement, explanations before obedience, and visible proof before trust. We wish to know where every road leads, how every chapter ends, and why every storm was allowed to arrive. Yet life rarely grants such clarity. Many of God's greatest works begin in places where sight reaches its limit. A traveler walking through mist may believe the road has vanished simply because it cannot be seen from a distance. Yet the path still exists beneath every step. The unseen portion does not mean the journey has ended. It only means that progress now requires trust. Faith lives in this hidden territory. It moves when evidence is incomplete. It hopes when circumstances argue against hope. It stands when logic suggests retreat. Not because it ignores reality, but because it believes reality is larger than what human eyes presently hold. There are seasons when life feels like walking through a valley at night. The landmarks disappear. Direction becomes uncertain. The future feels distant. Questions rise with frightening persistence. Why is this taking so long? Why has the answer not come? Why does the promise seem farther away now than before? The soul grows weary in such places. Waiting has its own kind of exhaustion. It is not the fatigue of labor alone, it is the weariness of carrying hope through silence. Days pass. Prayers continue. Nothing appears to change. The heart begins to wonder whether its faith is misplaced. Yet fate. Was never designed only for bright days. Anyone can believe while the sun shines and the road is clear. But when the sky darkens and the destination disappears, faith reveals its true strength. It continues walking not because everything makes sense, but because trust has become greater than fear. There is something sacred about taking one more step when the path remains unseen. That step may appear small to the world, yet heaven often sees it as courage. Rising again after disappointment is faith. Praying again after silence is faith. Hoping again after heartbreak is faith. The miracle is not always in immediate rescue. Sometimes it is found in the soul refusing to surrender. Many people think faith means never doubting. Yet the deeper truth is that faith often walks beside questions. A person may tremble and still believe. They may fear and still continue. The presence of uncertainty does not destroy faith, it frequently becomes the place where faith grows. The ocean appears circa Om from the shore, but those who sail its waters understand its hidden power. So it is with the spirit. The deepest faith is rarely loud. It does not always announce itself with grand declarations. Often it appears quietly in endurance, in persistence, in the decision to remain faithful when every visible reason seems absent. There are paths God reveals only step by step. If the entire journey were shown at once, the heart might become overwhelmed. So grace often gives enough light for today, while tomorrow remains hidden. Not as punishment, but as invitation. An invitation to trust. The unseen road teaches dependence. It reminds the soul that control is not the same as peace. Many people spend years trying to secure every outcome, only to discover that certainty cannot protect them from life. True peace arrives when trust becomes stronger than the need to understand everything. Faith also changes what the traveler notices. The person walking only by sight watches circumstances. Person walking by faith watches meaning. One sees obstacles and concludes the story is ending. The other sees obstacles and wonders what purpose may still be unfolding. This does not make the journey easier. The nights remain real. The tears still fall. The waiting still stretches longer than expected. Faith does not remove human weakness, it carries human weakness forward, and perhaps that is its greatest beauty. Faith is not the absence of storms. It is the refusal to let storms write the final sentence. It is the quiet conviction that beyond present confusion, beyond delayed answers, beyond hidden roads, something greater still moves. The soul that learns to walk when the path is unseen becomes stronger than circumstances. It stops demanding that every mystery be solved before taking the next step. It begins to understand that guidance is not always a map spread before the eyes. Sometimes it is simply enough light for the moment and enough grace to continue, for the future along. Ready being prepared does not belong only to those who can see clearly. It belongs also to those who keep moving through uncertainty, carrying faith like a small flame against the wind, trusting that even unseen roads may still lead toward the victory God has been writing all along. And as faith continues carrying its small flame through unseen roads, the heart slowly begins to lift its eyes beyond the present pain. For suffering has a powerful habit of narrowing vision. It teaches the soul to stare at the wound, the delay, the empty space, the unanswered prayer. Pain speaks loudly, and when it remains long enough, it tries to convince us that it is the whole story. But pain is not the whole story. There is always a promise standing somewhere beyond the present moment, though the eyes may not yet reach it. The difficulty is that human beings live inside chapters while God writes in complete books. We judge the story by the page before us. He sees the ending while we are still reading. The middle. This is why despair often arrives too early. The heart looks at unfinished scenes and calls them permanent. It mistakes temporary winters for endless seasons. It sees closed doors and assumes every entrance has disappeared. Yet many endings are only disguised beginnings waiting for their appointed time. A person standing before dawn may believe night has won simply because the sun has not yet appeared. Darkness feels absolute while it lasts. It covers everything. It silences color. It stretches across the horizon with convincing authority. Yet its power has always been temporary. So it is with sorrow. The grief that seems endless today may one day become the testimony of survival. The burden that bends the shoulders may become the strength that steadies another soul. The tears hidden in silence may water promises not yet visible. There are futures growing beneath present pain. The world often celebrates visible victories, open doors, achieved dreams, public triumph. Yet heaven sometimes begins victory in hidden places. It starts in wounded hearts learning to trust again. It begins in weary souls choosing hope despite disappointment. It appears quietly long before circumstances catch up. Many people abandon hope because they expect promises to arrive quickly. They imagine destiny as sudden light breaking through darkness. But promise frequently travels slower than expectation. It moves with patience. It builds foundations. It prepares both the gift and the one who will carry it. The waiting becomes difficult because the heart fears forgetting. It wonders whether heaven still remembers what was spoken. It fears that delay means abandonment. Yet time alone cannot cancel purpose. A seed buried beneath the soil does not lose its future because days pass in darkness. The hidden season is part of the promise itself. Growth continues where no eye can witness it. There are moments when life appears to move backward. Opportunities disappear. Strength fades. Familiar things are taken away. The soul feels reduced, as though progress has been reversed. Yet retreat is not always defeat. Sometimes it is preparation. The arrow moves backward before it moves forward. The roots deepen before the tree rises higher. Present pain often carries hidden assignments. It teaches endurance to those who will need strength later. It teaches compassion to those who will one day lift others. It teaches patience to hearts preparing for greater responsibility. The struggle is shaping capacity for what lies ahead. This does not make suffering pleasant. The promise beyond pain should never be used to deny the reality of pain itself. Tears remain real. Loss remains heavy. The nights still feel long. Hope does not erase human sorrow, it gives sorrow somewhere to go. The soul begins to endure differently when it believes the present moment is not final. Pain without purpose becomes unbearable. But pain carrying promise creates endurance. It whispers that this chapter is incomplete. It reminds the weary traveler that valleys do not continue forever. Rivers eventually leave narrow places. Winter yields to spring. Night gives way to morning. The movement may be slow, but movement still exists. There are blessings already moving toward lives that cannot yet see them. There are answers forming beyond visible horizons. There are doors being shaped while current ones remain closed. The future may appear silent, but silence is not emptiness. Perhaps one of the most beautiful truths is that promise often arrives stronger because of pain, not despite it. The person who has known loss values restoration differently. The one who has walked through darkness recognizes light with deeper gratitude. The soul refined by struggle carries victories with humility. The bright future ahead is not merely a reward waiting at the end of hardship. It is something already being woven through hardship itself. Every delay, every lesson, every quiet act of faith, it becomes part of its foundation, and slowly the heart learns to look beyond what hurts today, not because the pain has vanished, but because hope has become larger. It begins to believe that what feels broken may still be building something beautiful, that what feels delayed may still arrive at the right hour, and that somewhere beyond these present shadows, a promise continues moving toward fulfillment with steady and unseen hands.